Good evening, everyone. I know what you all are thinking. Let's get this session quickly so that we can go for networking, drinks. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a very engaging session. We have a good panel over here with a lot of experience. Even though the session is about the South Asian steel industry, we are going to primarily focus on India, given the experience of the panel members. As you all know, that India being the second largest steel producer in the world, the policies, the production capabilities of the iron sector, steel sector plays a huge role in global context. So what we are going to do over here, have a quick introduction of the panel members, then go to some key questions that concern Indian steel sector and have that engaging conversation. So let's start with you, Swapnil. Why don't you introduce yourself and then we move on.
I take care of the iron ore and sponge iron trading at Tata International. I have spent almost 20 years in the Indian iron ore mining industry, working with metals and mining companies.
Hi everyone, my name is Darren. I work for Mitsubishi Corporation RTM. I also look after iron ore and then mainly focus on India, Middle East and Southeast Asia market. Pleasure.
Good evening, audience. I am Vivek Nishantnath. I am heading the sales and marketing function of Odisha Mining Corporation, which is India's second largest iron ore seller and top seller of chrome ore and bauxite. So I have almost 31 years of experience in the industry. Thank you.
Good evening, the audience. I am Anil. I work for Esson International DMCC, which is a trading house taking iron and iron ore related products from India to other parts of the world. I work with Esson International since this year and almost 23 years of experience in the steel making sector for sourcing of iron ore and iron ore related products. Thank you.
Thanks. As for me, Gurmeet, I've head the Wireless Ferrous Association desk, which is growing the business by delivering partnerships in the ferrous sourcing sector. We are actually looking to grow this business by buying high-grade ore from miners globally. So to get started, I'll start with Mr. Vivek first. So Mr. Vivek, this question is for the whole panel, but starting with you first, given your experience in this sector. The steel production expectation in India, there are a lot of numbers that keep coming out. Currently, India produces around 140 million ton. The demand is expected to grow at 7-8%, depends on who you speak with. And people are talking about something like 210 million tons by 2030. What kind of challenges do you see in this production ramp up? Previously there were a lot of concerns on the land acquisition issues. They seem to be sorted out. Some people talk about India becoming an iron ore importer because lack of production in India for iron ore. And then there's always a conversation around coking coal with miners exiting coking coal and some junior producers coming in and taking that. But what kind of constraints you see in India's steel production growth?
Thank you. Thanks. It's an interesting question. As you are aware, the government of India has put an ambitious target of 300 million ton by 2030. At per our conservative estimate, it may not be reaching about 300, but maybe ending at 260, 265 with actual steel production reaching about 212 to 220 million ton by 2030. As far as the state-wise capacity addition goes, Odisha will be the highest where my mines are located. Odisha will be highest. It will be adding steel capacity almost threefold from current level of 28 million ton to about 98 million ton, whereas others will also be adding. Being part of government of Odisha, I can tell you that we are most proactive in providing all the facilities to the steel plants, and all the local issues and other things are being taken care of by the administration. Land issues were there earlier, but barring few of them, most of the issues have been resolved, and the steel production or steel plant projects are running very good. As far as other things are concerned, India being a net importer of coal and coke, that problem will remain as it is. But still we are surviving, and we look forward to a healthy competition in the steel sector from India. Thank you.
Yeah, moving on to Mr. Anil. Do you agree with Mr. Vivek or you have a different opinion?
No, I largely agree with Vivek. See, reaching a figure of 210 to 220 is just an arithmetical calculation you can rely on. Today we are at 140. 6 years down the line, you take the growth at 10%, you add 65 to 70 million tons to the current production level, that will take you to 210, 220. Most of the steel expansions that are happening are the large private players who are doing a sort of brownfield expansion, like the expansion is happening within the existing steel complexes. So the land issue is largely not, there for the first phase of expansion, which is going to be completed by maybe 25 or 26, where the industry expects to add 23 million tons to the current capacity. That leaves you with a gap of about 45 to 50 million tons, which is going to be happening by 2030 comfortably. So that takes care of your number 210 to 220 if everything goes right and the country expects to grow at the rate of 7% GDP, 6.5, 7.5, whatever is the number. We are going to add 10% growth to the steel making capacity year on year. Now coming back to the net importer of iron ore, I don't see that happening so quickly. Import of iron ore into India are basically two folds. Either is an opportunity buying, or maybe because of quality reasons, or maybe some sort of disruption in supply chain management, which is to take care of in time gap management. So I don't see that happening in so quickly. Maybe 10, 12 years, 15 years down the line, if the iron ore mining capacity does not match with the steel making requirements, that time, yes, companies will definitely look into import some iron ore, and that too maybe for an opportunity buying, or maybe to meet the quality gaps which will be there in the Indian iron ore.
Got it. Swapnil, you have been trading iron ore, and you're part of Tata Group in Tata International. As Vivek and Anil said, that by 2030, which brownfield expansion seems to be the way to grow steel production. But beyond that, I mean, what do you think? Do you think the land will still be an issue, or will not that be a constraint?
At this moment, we don't see land as an issue coming up for the near future. Though there is another aspect beyond this brownfield. If you look at the sponge iron, or what is called coal-based DRI production in India, that has been going very fast. It has almost reached 50 million tons, expected to go up another 10 to 15% a year, every single year. And that faces some issues with regards to lumps availability. Yes, of course, the Indian 63 pellets are available for these people to use, but then the quality is a slight of a constraint for them. The alumina in the Indian ore is slightly on the higher side. So whenever you see some opportunities arising, it would be for the low alumina ores for people who are sitting slightly far away from the mines. So those areas you see some, as you said, opportunistic buying coming in whenever the cost makes sense.
Yeah. No, thanks. Swapnil, about that. Darren, do you want to chip in with your views with coming from Mitsubishi? How do you see that in India?
I think our focus all this while has always been the quality of the material. And for us, I think we are generally quite involved in the high-grade segment. We do think that, moving forward with the increase in the steel capacity in India, we do see that opportunity for high-grade demand coming over. There is a lot of very good mines within India right at this point of time. I think it's probably a bit on the beneficiation technology moving forward, and also looking at how we actually handle the tailings, the waste management. So these are more on the environmental issue moving forward. But I think with the current leadership and the regulation and policy that we are seeing in India, we believe all this should not be too much of a problem over the long run. The only thing that is during the fast pace of those increase, there will be all these gaps for certain import opportunities to come in. I think that's where I think India remains a very attractive place for all this importing of iron ore moving forward. I think from an import point of view, we are actually very optimistic to see India having a very good appetite for high-grade material moving forward.
No, thanks, Darren. You all have spoken about iron ore imports. About iron ore exports, India has been exporting something like 45 million tons right now, primarily low grade and pellets because of export duty not being there. Do you see this low grade iron ore exports continuing? I mean, it's a very 35 million ton level. Do you see this growing? Do you this tapering off? Because what I've been hearing is that because of low grade iron ore exports, the rake availability reduces for the domestic mills in India. And there have been some noises about stopping this low-grade iron ore exports, though government hasn't taken any decisions. So let's say medium term, till 2030, Mr. Vivek, what do you think? Do you see this low-grade iron ore exports continuing, coming down, or, yeah?
Gurmeet, this pellet export has been continuing at the level of 11 to 13 million ton. This year, the export of low grade has jumped, primarily because our Karnataka sector has opened, and now Goa sector is opening. 1 or 2 mines have already started operation, and few more are going to be upstream quite soon. So I don't see, and Goa is basically meant for export only, that too for low-grade iron ore. So I don't see in near future any low-grade export coming down. As far as steel industry demand for a stoppage of export is concerned, yes, they will be there. But in the national steel policy itself, 10% of the total production was envisaged to have been to be exported. So as far as pellet 10 to 11 million ton, it's not being too high, and low grade it doesn't impact as of now. It is not impacting directly the steel industry as far as availability of iron ore goes, because availability of iron ore is mostly for 60 and above, and that is quite good for Indian steel producers. So although there will be some demand from steel industry, but I don't see in near future low grade export is going to come down.
No, thanks for that. Swapnil, I mean, Mr. Vivek made an interesting point that he doesn't see the low-grade iron ore exports stopping. But what I've been seeing is that the rake allocation for domestic has come down because of the exports going up, and some of the domestic steel mills have not been able to get the rakes for their own consumption. Coming from Tata, what do you think about it? Do you agree with Mr. Vivek, or you have a different opinion?
No, so I largely agree with him. Most of what is going out of India in low grades is all being moved by trucks. So the availability of railway rakes for exports is worse than what you will get for domestic steel. So it actually doesn't affect it badly. It is, if you look at it from a railway's perspective, it is the perfect set of cargo for them. They get iron ore which is going to the port and coal which comes back from the port to the steel mills. So it works well for the railways. I don't think the steel industry actually gets affected by it as much because most of the material is moving by road. The volumes, I have a slightly different view with Mr. Vivek simply because the Indian iron ore exports are largely a matter of price. So there is price arbitrage versus the domestic consumption. There is also the cost of moving it to the port. So once you start moving material by trucks, the trucks freight moves up along with the iron ore prices. So the cost curve keeps going up or down basis how the iron ore price is moving. So if you have an iron ore price which drops below 100, you would see most of the Indian iron exports going off, exception being Goa. So Goa can perform till say, let's say $50, but everything else will shut down if you have a steady state $100 price. And what we've been hearing in the morning, the price appears to be going down. So we might have a sort of sporadic supply from India coming in whenever the prices are higher.
Got it. Mr. Anil, just taking a different track over here, we spoke about a bit about Goa. Do you see Goan iron exports coming back, and to what level? I mean, firstly, do you agree with the low-grade iron exports continuing from India, and what do you think from Goa coming out in next few years?
The export of low-grade iron ore fines from India has again got two facets. One is the first thing is the usability by the domestic steel manufacturers and the pellet manufacturers as well. Today, the ores that is being utilized by these players are largely high grade. In high grade, I mean, in India, they look at anything beyond 62, 63. So those are the preferred ore kind of thing there. So these kind of resources are now slowly depleting. Naturally, this is a high-grade resource depleting. These players have started looking at a little lower band, 60, 62 band, to blend with the ore and use it. So clearly, anything below 60 is not the preferred kind of ore by the steel manufacturers. That is why the ores that get exported out of India are largely less than 58% Fe because of the no duty structure, and again by not being utilized by the domestic steel players. So when this ore is not getting utilized within India, there is no point in holding that and keeping it piling up at the mine head. So that is why they find the way out to the exports. That, therefore, I don't see tapering down or maybe going down in the medium term. Yes, in the longer term, of course, there is a policy that is being talked of by the government, by the stakeholders, the regulators. Each miner has to do a certain volume of beneficiation of lower grade. So that is being talked of. Now, if that gets imposed, then you are bound to do a certain volume of your production to benefit, and those lower grades will get utilized in that process. But that is still a bit of a time away from present day. So first is, yes, the low grade exports is going to continue, and maybe continuing at a level of either equal to the current level or maybe slightly plus minus this way, that way. Now coming back to your second question, exports from Goa, yes. Whatever produce or whatever outcome that can have from the Goan mines, it has a complete alignment to go to the exports because of the nature of the ore there. And those ores hardly gets utilized within India, apart from a very sparse 1 or 2 shipments here and there. My view will be, yes, Goan ores will still continue to get exported.
Okay, thanks, Anil, for that. Darren, are you getting some interest from Goan miners? Are they approaching you for, restarting exports? What kind of response or what kind of, contacts you are getting from Goa?
I think so far on Goa, after they have restarted, we do see quite a decent buying interest from China. So I think that has been going well. In terms of volume, like you mentioned, I think probably driven by the first one, which I agree with Swapna, is that I think very driven by export prices, so viability. I think when the international prices is on the higher side, I think that will motivate a lot of that export. Moving forward, I think the key determining factor that affects the export will be the development of beneficiation technology, the ability to refine and process the lower grade segment over on the longer term. I think if there are certain technologies that is being developed to further process the low grade iron ore into something that is suitable for the domestic market, I think we will see a considerable impact in terms of the volume for export. Once we see those technology being developed, I think that will have impact in terms of how much more volume we're going to export moving forward. But right now, on the shorter term, it's largely based on price on the export market. Yeah.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks you spoke about the beneficiation because that was my next question. It seems like there are a lot of developments happening globally on beneficiation. Previously, it was simple washing in Australia. In Brazil, we have concentration facilities, also in China. But in India, and that's to Mr. Anil, that we haven't seen much beneficiation happening. I think government is trying to make a push towards it. And I think the constraints that I can see is one of the water availability because it competes with agriculture. And second, the disposal of tailings. You require a lot of land to dispose of tailings. So what do you think, how this sector is going to develop in India? Because right now, I remember that SI used to have a lot of beneficiation in Eastern India. But I haven't seen much beneficiation coming up in India. I think I can see those two constraints, but you can probably throw more light. How do you see this coming out in the next few years?
Yep. See, beneficiation, what you mentioned, that is happening in the eastern part of the country by SR or maybe a couple of other players. it's really technically not the beneficiation what we see in Brazil and other places. It is maybe you can get partial beneficiation. And coming back to the technicality of beneficiation, the Odisha ores, maybe because of the nature of mineralogical composition, the upgradation can happen maybe up to 2 and 2.5% of Fe in that. And in that also, below a certain Fe content, if you take for example, the Odisha ore, if it is having 50 to 53% Fe, you cannot upgrade that to 62 or 63% Fe economically. It can do that, but the rejects will be too much, maybe in the range of 80-85%, which will make it unviable. So that could be the primary reason why in the eastern part of the country is not seeing much of beneficiation capabilities coming in. Similarly, the government policy which is being now pushed just to bring the interest of the miners to move towards beneficiation, because that will be the call of the future. Otherwise, will not be, if you keep on looking at only the high-grade ores, it will not meet the requirement of the industry. That is number two. Number three, yes, there are a lot of constraints because unlike the iron ore resources in other countries like Brazil, Australia, or many other places, in India, the iron ore mines, they sit virtually in the middle of the habitats. It could be human habitats or maybe close to ecologically sensitive zones. So this practically becomes very, very difficult to set up a beneficiation facility where you require a significant land for tailing dam, you require significant, a lot of land to develop the beneficiation facilities. So those are the challenges that is there in India. So if you ask me how the beneficiation space would develop in the country going forward, I would say that it will take a bit long time to reach to the level of what we are seeing in the countries like Australia or Brazil.
Thanks, Anil. Mr. Vivek, do you see any R&D happening in this space? Because in Australia, I see a lot of research is happening. The universities are leading that research. But what kind of work do you see that's happening in India? And also in Orissa, your company operates in Orissa primarily. What kind of developments you see, or what kind of interest level? I know this decarbonization challenge is coming, so you need a bit of high grade that needs to come in to reduce carbon footprint. You also have mines depleting, so a lot of low grade is coming out. So there is a natural push that might happen towards beneficiation. So what kind of interest levels you see in Odisha?
Yeah, before coming to your question, let me add to what Anil says. To my mind, like earlier we used to have a lot many ash lying and not getting utilized. Now the bricks are being made and all. So to my mind, what the tailings needs to be first utilized. We have to think of either briquetting or pellet making or brick making. An industry has to be set up for utilizing the tailing. Then probably we can think of longer term perspective for iron ore beneficiation in India. That is one. Number two, the second question was on the issue of?
So, because of decarbonization push,
Decarbonization, many companies like Indian companies are currently at a level of 2.5, where world is about 1.8. Every company is making an effort to go for decarbonization, and they are like JSPL, they are using many technologies, carbon-based technologies. As far as mining goes, we are trying to push for more of solar energy, vehicle for our mining operation. But there is no guideline exactly being pushed by Government of India very seriously. They have framed policies, but as of now, it is not happening. Every company on its individual basis, they are formulating their own policies. Like even my company, they are going to formulate a policy for 2030 vision for CO2 carbon decarbonization. But on a serious note, I don't see that much of the things are happening. Number one. Number two, Indian steel industry is driven by its own demand, its internal demand. There is, of course, 3 to 4 million or 8 million ton of export happening, half of which is going to Europe. but we are not totally entirely dependent on our export. Whatever steel industry is growing, it growing much of because of internal demand also. So probably that could be one of the reasons that we are not very much seriously taking the decarbonization process, except the few companies which will be directly impacted by way of their exports to Europe. So they are, of course, in line through gas uses, through high grade iron ore uses, and very high grade of coke uses.
Thanks, Vivek. Swapnil, you are into trading primarily iron ore, and do you see trading companies getting into this beneficiation space by setting up beneficiation plants? It may not be for exports because there's an export duty factor that comes in, but for the domestic market.
To be honest, there are small trading companies who are into this beneficiation place. If you look at places like Karnataka, you have 3 or 4 players who are dedicatedly just running beneficiation plants, who have a domestic trade which is existing there for a long time. Similar case would probably be there for Orissa. None of the major traders are so far looking at it. Everyone seems to be running behind what is happening today. But we do keep looking at this regularly. And so far it doesn't seem to make sense, because if you are buying 54 high 6-7 alumina, what else would you get out of that? The alumina in the ores which is currently being exported does not make it sensible for anyone to beneficiate and export. For a domestic consumption, there are enough players around. The steel mills have their own beneficiation plants, at least to the extent of washing. If you're looking at low alumina, high silica ores, there are again pockets. The miners are looking at it. The steel mills are already looking at it. Probably not a space for trading companies to be entering into in the domestic Indian market.
Got it. Darren, do you have a different view? Do you want to set up a beneficiation facility in India? Do something different?
I think for beneficiation to really ramp up in terms of that capacity, I think one of the key questions to solve will be how creative we can be in terms of the waste management of the tailings and the byproducts from there. I think once we have more creative further reprocessing of the byproducts, I think the beneficiation will have that ramp up in terms of that productivity and the capacity, because we will have waste and usage and application for the waste. I think that will be one of the key determining factor to see the growth in terms of beneficiation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. I'll move on to the last part of the discussion. That's on CBAM. You know, a lot of Indian steel producers have been, major steel producers have been exporting the steel to Europe, and that will come under the ambit of CBAM. So what kind of impact you see on that, on the global steel trade, or what imbalances it can cause? I mean, being in Mitsubishi, you trade steel from globally, from everywhere. And what do you see? How does it impact the Indian steel sector?
Just for everyone's benefit, CBAM stands for Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. It's a system that is implemented from Europe. Europe is taking key leadership in terms of implementing carbon tariffs moving forward. That is a very strong commitment in terms of climate change, in terms of commitment to the Paris Agreement, which is very admirable. I think the immediate impacts will be, I think the first one will be Indian steel mills looking to find certain ways to export to other region. I think because obviously that will impact on profitability, margins. I think that will be the natural first course of action. But the second thing, over the longer term, I think the reality of this CBAM is really to motivate companies to also have more R&D, more innovation, work together to really bring down the carbon footprint of steel making. Some may argue that this is an additional tariff, but I think if we all look forward on a longer term basis, this is something good for all of us in the sense that it's really motivating us to have greener steel making technology, which is the trend moving forward. So I think on the longer term, is to really look at more innovation, yeah, in terms of steel making technology.
Mr. Vivek.
Yes, CBAM, in India also we are trying to go for various methods. I have visited many industries, and what I posed this question to many of the smaller industries, sponge iron manufacturers and all. So what they are telling in India as a short-term mitigation plan, that okay, I will dedicate certain portion, one module of my plant specifically for exports to Europe, wherein I will be using top-class raw material products and all the parameters will be world-class, wherein it can be like all the parameters can be just and decarbonization can be like it can be explained to the European customers that, okay, my steel is green steel. So part of their process, they will be divulging, they will be dedicating for European exports. Rest of the things, they will run for Indian consumption. That is one part of mitigation plan that many of the smaller steel producers, they are planning.
So do you think that a bit of scrap could be used to produce that kind of
Bit
steel?
of scrap, part of their process will be run with very high grade of iron ore,
Yeah.
very high grade of coke. So those kind of things they are looking at
Got it.
with renewable energy and all.
That's interesting. Mr. Anil, what do you think?
I would like to agree with Darren. Like if the country has its own demand of 10% or 12% of steel year on year, we may not look at beyond the Indian boundary to export. But having said that, if we have additional capacity and if we want to do exports to the countries where the CBAM is applicable, yes, it has got a price. You put a price to it and pay that thing, and if it makes sense, it's viable, export it. Otherwise, like what we are doing today for iron ore, even if the low-grade iron ore, if the price is not viable, people are not exporting, just sitting on that and looking, waiting for the opportunity to come in. Same thing can happen for the steel also.
Yeah. Swapnil, I'm not sure if you could talk about Tata Steel, but yeah, just if you want to give your view on
I
that.
can't speak about Tata Steel, but from a Tata International perspective, we are seeing a lot more interest coming into scrap.
Okay.
And what we are also seeing is there's a lot more interest in setting up sort of car scrapping facilities in India.
Yep.
It may not be huge in terms of the overall scrap volume, but you will see some more formal players coming into the Indian scrap industry. You have Tata Motors doing scrapping of cars. We have Mahindra getting into scrapping of cars. Maruti is getting into scrapping of cars. You should see anything between 2 to 3 million tons of scrap coming from just these sources in the near future.
Okay.
Plus, if you talk to any steel mills, they're all looking for scrap imports right now. So from our perspective, scrap seems to be an opportunity that from a trading company perspective, we should start looking at it more aggressively.
Okay. Oh, thanks. I think that brings us towards the end. I'm not sure how many Q&A we have, how we are doing for the time. I think we are doing perfectly fine. I'll take one question that's there. How will India get into carbon-free steel making in future? So who wants to take up that? Mr. Vivek? I mean, just when you speak to steel mills in your state, in Orissa, what kind of plans they have, or they don't have any plans for now, but they will see what kind of policies the government comes out with.
Yes, as far as mining goes, we are already devising a methodology wherein we will be using the renewables, we will be using EV in our mines, and all other parameters for water usage, sanitation, and all the parameters for SDG will be implemented. Being a government company, we are already part of it. Many of the carbon reduction things. The plantation and environmental production we are already doing. So going forward, we will have to plan a holistic view, take a holistic plan as to how to mitigate this and reduce our carbon footprint going forward. As of now, there is no firm plan. There are bits and pieces we are doing in this mine and that particular mine, but slowly, to my mind, one by one, each mine we will be targeting and we will be making it carbon neutral with a targeted scheme. We have got 13 working mine, iron ore mines. So one by one mine or two mines are already quite near to it. We will try to implement 100% decarbonization, and going forward, I think each mine or each company in India will adopt such kind of practices.
Gunmit, just want to pitch in. For that reason, if this question can be reframed, how will India get to carbon-free steel making? Do we know when the world can get to the carbon-free steel making? Mean to say that, the talking has just started. We've just started to work on, even the global players have at least started thinking on that lines. It means it will take a considerable amount of time to make the industry carbon-free. Similarly, India will also take a substantial time to get to carbon-free steel making, because it's not only your steel making process, all the allied things that comes into the steel making has to be carbon-free. Like today, if you look at the expansion that is happening in India, the major steel plants, when we talk of carbon-free steel making, they are putting up sinter plants, blast furnaces, and which are coke-based. So where do the carbon-free steel making coming in? Only thing is the substantial talking of the whatever progress that has been made in this space is parts of Europe. So yes, there will be a day when carbon-free steel making will come into action, but not very so soon.
Thanks for that. There are quite a few questions over here. Will Indian domestic iron ore price converge with international iron ore price? I think, Mr. Vivek, that question is for you.
It is in sync. As far as Odisha and OMC prices goes, it is in sync. If you see the movement of IBM declared average sales price, you will see the movement is in sync with international price movement. Exactly, there will always be a delta between the Indian prices, Indian iron ore prices, and international prices, but it will not merge one-on-one basis. Indian prices will always be, Indian iron ore prices will always be at a discount compared to the international prices, and there will always be delta. If I am an iron ore producer, I'll see to it that my prices on delivered basis doesn't become costlier than imported price. So that difference, that delta, I will always have to maintain. So Indian iron ore prices will always be lower compared to the domestic international iron ore prices. Of course, it will move in sync with a time period lag, say 15 to 20 days or 30 days.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Vivek, someone seems to be liking you in the audience. That question, next one is specifically for you only. OMC had revised their selling policy and allowed traders, exporters to participate in their auction. Was it also one of the reasons for higher iron ore exports?
I don't think so. The participation of trader has helped rather the domestic steel industry, because many of the traders, they do the funding and financing also. So many of the small sponge iron producers, they get to have the iron ore at a credit, so they start operating. We have done an analysis on that. Out of the quantity that we are offering, only 7 to 8% is being taken by trader, out of which 1/3 or 1/4 is getting exported. So 2 to 3% is getting exported. Of course, had we not allowed, that 2 to 3% would not have got exported. But other than that, there is no impact on export from OMC policy perspective.
Okay, thanks. I don't see any more.
Sorry. So I think it's absolutely zero. I mean, sir keeps saying there's 7 to 8%, but if that material was not allowed to be exported, someone else would have exported his material, and they would have taken this material from OMC. So in my opinion, this has not at all affected the export market. The grades are much higher than what is permitted to be exported without duty. So they're largely catering to the domestic industry. You have some players trying to play around with small lots out of that, but it's largely the other mines which are benefiting, pushing the material into the export markets.
Over and above, a few of the steel producers, they will have their trading arm to serve their own plant only. So they will participate in the name as a trader, but ultimately the material will be going to their plant only.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Gunmit, I would like to address the second part of the question.
Will the Indian
the previous question actually, whether it will converge with the international prices. unless until the international prices goes below $40 per ton.
Thanks. I don't see any more questions on the screen. Someone wants to do the traditional way, raising their hand and asking a question? I think it's time for drinks. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, panel members, for making this a very engaging conversation. Thank you. Take care.